Okay, well, I'd like to welcome everyone. We will have available handouts in three places after the webinar. The handouts will be located on our website in a link that will be posted in the Zoom chat actually during this meeting, in the notes accompanying the recording on our video channel and on the website, and also the NaCCRA website forums that is on the topic today, Good Death, will also have a link to all of our handouts that we have been provided. So I think that covers all of the housekeeping. So I'd like to again welcome you to NaCCRA's first webinar of the new year. NaCCRA is excited to report that this will be the first of several educational and informative webinars that we have planned for 2026. Upcoming on March 18th, we will be featuring Alden Meyer, who is an expert on U.S. and global climate policy, along with other panelists from other states regarding protecting our environment and global warming. On May 19th, we're going to be hosting during Dementia Week with ex-Governor Martin Schreiber on caregiving and Alzheimer's, and we're bringing back Dr. Barrett, who spoke last year for us on his medical aspects of Alzheimer's. And in the summer, lastly, we're going to be looking at forever plastics and their effects. So we've got all sorts of things lined up, and we hope you'll find them all entertaining. But today, we believe the information that you will receive will be well worth making these materials today your New Year's resolution to accomplish in 2026. We have Chris Palmer to guide us through the necessary steps to ensure your success in achieving a good death. But first, I'd like to introduce Dr. Chuck Webb, our NaCCRA Board Director that is responsible for bringing you this program. Chuck, please take the light here.
Thank you. Yeah, it's my pleasure to introduce Chris Palmer. Chris is an author, wildlife filmmaker, and retired professor. He's 78 years old with 3 daughters and 9 grandchildren. He and his wife have lived in Bethesda, Maryland for over 50 years. He gives several talks every week on aging, death, and dying. 15 years ago, Chris faced the reality that he would die and needed to prepare. This led to his most recent book, Achieving a Good Death, A Practical Guide to the End of Life, published a little over a year ago. It is a treasure. I say this as an internist who taught palliative care and end of life in medical school, established a hospice and an inpatient palliative care consult service. Chris grew up in England, where he was a high school boxing champion and did stand-up comedy. He still does stand-up comedy. He earned a master's in engineering from the University College London, specializing in ocean engineering and naval architecture. As an engineer, he served 7 years as an officer in the Royal Navy. Then at age 5, he became a Kennedy Scholar and moved to the States. He earned a master's in public administration from Harvard. He served in the Environmental Protection Agency under Jimmy Carter. He worked for a senator for 4 years on Capitol Hill and was instrumental in founding the Alliance to Save Energy. His knowledge of the sea led him into wildlife filmmaking. At age 37, he founded the Audubon Productions, a nonprofit film company with the National Audubon Society. He served 15 years as its president and CEO. He's still president of McGillivray Freeman Films, the world's largest and most successful producer of IMAX movies. In his 35 years as a filmmaker, Chris spearheaded more than 300 hours of original programming for prime time television and IMAX films. He swam with dolphins and whales, came face to face with sharks and bears, and camped out with wolves. He worked with Robert Redford, Paul Newman, Jane Fonda, Ted Turner, and others. He and his colleagues won many awards, including 2 Emmys and an Oscar nomination. He taught filmmaking at the American University for 14 years. He gave a TED Talk on nature filmmaking and also taught a popular class called Design Your Life for Success. Chris has written 10 books, not counting the children's books authored with his daughter, a pediatrician. The first 2 were on wildlife filmmaking. He's also written books on how to be an effective parent, how to be an outstanding college teacher, and how to find meaning and purpose in life. All the proceeds from his books fund student scholarships at the American University. He's a hospice volunteer, runs a death and dying group in Bethesda, and serves on the board of directors of several organizations, including Final Exit Network and the Bethesda Metro Area Village. Join me in welcoming Chris Palmer.
Thank you, Chuck. Thank you. Yes, thank you all. Thank you all of you for being here, Chuck. Thank you for that lovely introduction. You know, before Chuck wrote to me, I had not heard of NaCCRA, the National Continuing Care Residents Association, but I've become so impressed with it. And this, for example, is their latest issue of it's called Lifeline, NaCCRA's newsletter. And it's fantastic. Oh my gosh, there's an article in here by Richmond Shreve, who's and Chuck has an article, and Luana. It's wonderful, and I just want to say what an honor it is to be here today with all of you. So we've got a lot to cover, and so this is the book that I wrote about death and dying. It's called Achieving a Good Death, and this is the book that Chuck mentioned, subtitled "The Practical Guide to the End." But this talk today to NaCCRA is not about selling this book. No, it's not. It's about the contents of the book. The contents of the book, and you can put the contents of this book into 3 buckets. 3 buckets. The first bucket is what you do before you die. The second bucket is death and dying itself. And the third bucket is after death. What happens after that? After death. So in the first bucket before death, that includes things like living well to die well. It includes things like writing an ethical will, having an advance directive, having a dementia rider to your advance directive, and death cleaning, things like that. That's the first bucket. You do all these things in the decades before you die. Then the middle bucket is about death and dying, and that's obvious. That's about hospice, about palliative care, about medical aid in dying, about voluntary stopping eating and drinking, V said, about going to Switzerland with Dignitas or another non-profit there. It's about the Final Exit Network exit guide program. It's about palliative sedation. It's all these things about death and dying. And then the third bucket is about what happens after death. That's obvious. That's body disposition. How do you dispose of the body? Green burial, cremation, water cremation, fire cremation, natural organic reduction, human composting, obituaries, eulogies, grief, all those things. So it's I'm saying all this only because it's a big topic, and I want to cover quite a lot today in order to stimulate your questions. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm only going to talk for about half an hour, maybe 35 minutes, and then I'm going to stop for questions. So I want to encourage all of you to get a paper and pencil. Get a paper and pencil handy, not to write down what I'm saying, because I will give you handouts on all that, and you can read my book. I'm happy to give you copies of my book as a gift. So you don't have to write notes of what I'm saying, but do write notes on thoughts that occur to you, questions that you might have. Please have a paper and pencil handy. So as a question occurs to you, you write it down and don't forget it. Okay. So all right. Very, very, very good. So All right, so before I start on the three buckets, I thought I would quickly answer a question some of you may be having. How did I become interested in this rather what some people might consider gloomy? I don't consider it gloomy at all, but what some people might consider a gloomy, even a macabre topic, death and dying. Well, I became interested because when I was about 60, I realized that the death that was going to happen to me. Up until about 60, I thought that's what other people did, and it didn't really apply to me. I was very naive and ignorant. But when I got to 60, it dawned on me that no, I'm going to die. And it scared me. It's really scared me. And I thought, what was I going to do about this? Was I going to go to therapy or more sensibly, was I going to, and this is what I did, to confront it. And by confront it, I mean study it. Talk to people about it, start giving talks about it, write about it, and so on. Confront it head on with my eyes wide open. That's what I did, and I'm still scared of it. I'm still scared of it, but not as much. And it led to writing this book, Achieving a Good Death. It led to me starting a death and dying group. We meet every month, and so on and so on. Okay, so that's one question. Another question you might have is before we start on the buckets is, wait a minute, Chris, you call this achieving a good death. How can death ever be good? What are you talking about? I mean, how can death is the end of things, end of life on this earth. How can that be good? What do you mean a good death? So let me answer that question. So a good death is a death that the dying person wants. That's a good death. So if a person wants to have medical interventions right up to the end of their life, they want to have a hip replacement a week before they die, they want to be intubated, a ventilator feed, a peg feed, and so on and so on, they should have the right to do it. We should have autonomy up to the end. For me, though, a good death is a little bit different. It's gentle, it's peaceful. This is my opinion of what a good death is, just for me. It's peaceful, it's gentle, it's free of pain and suffering, and it's full of grace and dignity. The dying person is surrounded by their loved ones. They're at home. They have a chance to say goodbye and thank you, and hears from those present how much the dying person's life meant to them. The room is full of loving exchanges, expressions of tenderness and gratitude, shared memories of a life well lived, and perhaps even joyful reconciliation. Some of you may have read David McCullough's book on the Wright brothers, the brothers who invented flight in 1902, 1903, Wilbur and Orville. They were wonderful people, but they had a sister who's forgotten. This sister was devoted to them. She devoted her whole life to them. They depended on her. And when she was 50, she married a guy. She married somebody. The brothers were furious. They could not believe how disloyal she was. How dare you leave us and go and get married to this person? And they cut her out of their lives. They were estranged. They didn't talk for 30 years. When she was on her deathbed, one of the brothers by then had died, but Orville, who remained, came and saw her. And on her deathbed, they reconciled. So reconciliations can happen. I think a good death is also characterized by doctors telling patients honestly that death is near, so that patients can say goodbye to loved ones. It shocks me. It shocks me how many doctors are so scared of death and dying. They would rather say to a patient, "Oh, let's try this treatment from John Hopkins," or rather than saying, "Well, I've done," being honest and saying, "I've done all I can. It's time for hospice." And I wish doctors were more honest and candid like that, because then people know, and they can live their lives to the full, to the end, and they can say goodbye. A lot of people don't say goodbye and thank you because they die before they have it, because they didn't realize they're going to die. The doctor hasn't told them. So it's funny how people think that talking about death and dying sort of is more likely to make it happen. That's like thinking that talking about having sex education is more likely to make you pregnant. It's not. Then finally, let me say, a good death means being prepared to die. Having few regrets. I won't say no regrets because we're all human. We all make mistakes. I've made a ton of mistakes in my life, but few regrets. And having one's affairs in order means to to have one's advance directive followed, and to be able to die when one wants. Above all, in my opinion, a good death means the dying patient controls what's happening to them. Okay, so now let me quickly move on because we're running low on time. Let me quickly move on to the first bucket. Remember, this first bucket is what happens prior to death. So let me just quickly pick out three topics from that bucket. The first one I'm going to pick is live well to die well. I have a whole chapter devoted to this subject. It's so important. The key message here is how you live in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s before you get frail and senescent. How you live has a big impact on how you die. And a lot of people sort of don't fully grasp that. But by the way, by a good life, I don't mean having a fancy house, a car, a boat, any of that crap. No, I do not mean that. What I mean is living a life where you live a decent life. You care for other people. You're devoted to your family. You are generous. You're kind. You're thoughtful. You're considerate. And you care about things. And you try to help other people through a variety of ways. So this is what I mean by living good life. And if you live, I learned this from hospice nurses. I work in a hospice, and I learned this from hospice nurses that people who tend to live a good life, good in the way I described, a good life, tend to have better deaths. No guarantee, but tend to have better deaths. So that's one key point I'd make from that first bucket is live well to die well. Another point from that bucket is ethical wills. Ethical wills are also called legacy letters. We should all write them. Back in March of 2020, when COVID started, I wrote a love letter to my wife. We've been married over 50 years. And it's Gail, her name is. And I wrote to Gail and why I loved her, why she meant so much, thanked her for all she had done for me, all the support she'd given me, for her understanding, and so on and so on. Then I wrote a letter to my three daughters, who are now in their 40s. I'm 78. And then I wrote to about 60 friends with a similar. These letters were 6 or 7 pages long and talked about why they were so special to me, why they mattered. And I realized as I was doing this that I was actually writing an ethical will, because that's what an ethical will is. It's a letter to your survivors, to your people who are going to survive you, describing why they're so special. It might also describe your values, what you hope for them in the future, things like this. Wonderful things to do. My book has a whole chapter on this and examples and tells you how to write one. It's very, 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 very important. Because don't forget, we sort of die twice, don't we? We sort of die twice. We die once when our hearts stop beating and our lungs stop functioning, and our brain, we die physically. But don't we die again 3 decades, 4 decades later, when the last person who ever knew us dies? My grandmother, we called her Little Granny, was born in 1890. What is that? 22 years before the Titanic sank. It's a long time ago, 1890. And she lived 98 years. I knew her well. I loved her. And she died in 1988. And my father's mother, she was wonderful. But when she died, when she's dead, when I die, she is truly going to be dead, because no one will remember. And the reason I'm saying this, and it's germane to ethical wills, is when you write an ethical will or a legacy letter, you are putting in writing your deepest thoughts, what you hold most passionately deep down in your heart. And it's a way of lessening, assuaging, mollifying, softening the sting of both those deaths, because you're leaving something for your progeny to read. So I think ethical wills are very, very important. And the final in that first bucket, the other thing I would mention is death cleaning. Such a phrase most of you will know, some of you may not. It's just another word for decluttering. I'm just amazed how many people have cluttered homes. They are basically hoarders, and they have collected possessions over decades of life and haven't got rid of them, and they can't. Their basements are full, and back, and their lofts are full of stuff. And this is not good because it means that those who survive us, our children, nephews, nieces, neighbors, or whoever, those that survive us are then left with the job of cleaning out this junk. So it's an act of love and consideration and caring to clean out your house, or at least declutter. It's called death cleaning. While you can, while you have the strength to do it. I have friends who are now in their mid-80s who no longer have the strength to pick up boxes, and so they can't do it any longer. And they feel very bad about leaving this mess for their children to clean up. Anyway, death cleaning is another thing too. The reason that all these things, ethical wills, death cleaning, living or to die well, they relate to dying, because if you do them, then when you're on your deathbed, you are going to feel calmer, serene, more tranquil. You'll feel more at ease because you won't be saying to yourself, "Oh gosh, I wish I had cleaned my house. I'd not left it to my kids. I wish I'd written an ethical will to tell them how much they meant to me. I wish I'd done that. I wish I'd put it in." You won't be saying, you won't have those regrets. And one of the goals in life is to die with few regrets, as I said earlier. Okay, so let's now go to the second bucket. It is 2:20. Good, we're making good progress. Let's go to the second bucket. Don't forget to write notes on things you want to ask me about. You can ask me, by the way, you can ask me anything. You can ask me anything about aging, death, and dying, anything you want. So let's go to the second bucket. Remember, the second bucket is death and dying itself. So this is hospice. And so let me start with hospice. Hospice is wonderful. I think you all know this, you have to be within 6 months of prognostication of 6 months or less to get into hospice. Most of us go to hospice too late and don't take advantage of it enough. It's all paid for by Medicare. And it's really a good thing to do. Many of these hospices, especially the non-profit hospices, have non-pharmacological treatments, pet care, music therapy, hand massage, and aromatherapy and so on. And these are wonderful, can be very comforting when you're dying. So hospice is great, but don't forget, it doesn't give you 24/7 care. Some people are under the illusion that hospice means you have care around the clock. No, you don't. The hospice will come and show you how to put morphine into your loved one who's dying and show you how to administer pills and give you a bed and a commode and all these things, but they're not there. It's a lot of work. It's still there for the families to move the patient so they don't get bed sores, to change diapers, to take the patient to the doctors. It's a lot of work still left. So hospice is fabulous, but don't think it's going to solve all, it's not going to take all that work off your shoulder. Anyway, hospice is great, and so that's in the middle bucket, the death and dying bucket. Let me also talk about end of life options. Oh my gosh, this is so important. End of life options, and some of this may disturb some of you. Some of you may be deeply religious and think it's only God can say when we die. It's not. We don't have a right to hasten death. Please, you have my total permission to have those thoughts. You're entitled to any opinion you have. My opinion, it's just an opinion, not worth anything, but my opinion is that people should have the right to die if they are suffering intolerably, if they're suffering intractably, if they're suffering unbearably with pain. Then I think, and they're already old and near death, they should have the right to gently hasten their death. And there are 5 ways of doing that. The one obvious thing is to withhold and withdraw life-sustaining treatments. If you're on dialysis or if you're taking antibiotics for pneumonia, get off those life-saving treatments. That's one thing that might help gently speed up your death. Another is voluntarily stopping eating and drinking, which goes by VSAID, voluntarily stopping eating and drinking. By the way, all the things I'm mentioning, feel free to, in the Q&A, to come back and say, Chris, you mentioned VSAID. What is that exactly? You ask me, feel free to ask me anything you want to clarify things. But VSAID is where you stop eating and drinking. Now, for a young person, this is torture. For an older person getting near the end, it's not torture. And it's been well documented that it's that uncomfortable because you get a dry mouth and you get very thirsty. But if you've got grit and fortitude and you want to gently hasten your death, it takes 12 to 14 days. You want to gently hasten your death, also giving you time to say goodbye and thank you to all your loved ones. Then VSAID is one option to consider. It's also legal everywhere. every state, unlike medical aid in dying. And so that's VSED. Another is palliative sedation. In the old days, we call this barbiturate sedation. I talk in the book how it's not dissimilar to euthanasia, which is illegal in this country. But palliative sedation is where the doctor gives you high doses of opiates, of painkiller, to the point that you become comatose, and death follows. So, but the motivation is not to kill you. The motivation is to ease your pain. So that's why it is legal. Then we palliative sedation, terminal, also called terminal sedation. And then there's lethal medication. This is medical aid in dying. You've all heard of this. New York City has just come in. Illinois came in recently. Delaware came in. We now have 13 states. 100 million Americans are now covered by medical aid in dying. But that still leaves 250 million who are not. So it's only a third of the country. But I support medical aid in dying. Many of you will not. And it's perfectly okay not to support it. The Roman Catholic Church is very much against it. My wife is a Roman Catholic. So there are various different views on this. My own permission, but my own position is in favor of it. And this is where you take a drink. In this country, it has to be through your digestive system, through the mouth, through a pedicle, a peg in your a feed through your tummy, or rectally. It has to be through it can't be intravenously, as you can do that in Canada, you can do that in the Netherlands, in Belgium, and in Switzerland, but you can't do that in this country. It has to be through the digestive system, and it has to be self-administered. You have to be mentally capable. So there are a lot of criteria. It's very, very regulated. Anyway, medical aid in dying is very good. You can go to Switzerland. This is also medical aid in dying, but they call it a different name. They call it VAD, voluntary assisted dying, and you can do it intravenously. If you do it through a non-profit like Dignitas or Athanasios, or there are several others, very, very good. It's expensive, $15,000. Takes a lot of paperwork, and of course, when you're older, getting near death, and want to use the Swiss method of hastening your death, it's often not easy to travel because you're fragile, you're frail, So flying internationally to Switzerland can be tough. And then the final fifth option to way to gently hasten your death is through the Final Exit Network. This is a non-medical way of doing it. Final Exit Network, or FEN. I serve on the board. Their exit guide program, and I highly recommend it. It's very good. This is using inert gas or nitrogen, or it used to be helium. Now we use nitrogen. Actually, it's not inert gas, but using a gas and a hood. But Final Exit Network is very, very good. I encourage you to go to their website, finalexitnetwork.org, to learn more. You can click on the exit guide program. It's very, very good. So those are some of the ways. It's 227. Those are some of the end-of-life options that fall into this middle bucket of dying. So let me now go on to the third bucket. Hope I'm not talking too fast, and I hope I'm making sense. And please think of questions. And by the way, some of you may have questions that are too private, too sensitive to put here. And in that case, feel free to write to me. My email, and perhaps somebody, Jim, perhaps, or somebody, Chuck, or somebody could put my email address in the chat. I've got the chat open, by the way, and please, I encourage you to put questions there. My email address is christopher.n.palmer@gmail.com. Feel free to write to me, and I hope someone will put that in the chat, christopher.n.palmer@gmail.com. Feel free to write to me if you want, and everything I do is pro bono. There's no money involved here. Everything I do is pro bono. My talks, everything I do. So, okay, not seeing my address there yet, but I hope someone is going to put it in the chat. Jim, perhaps you will do that, or Chuck. Okay, all righty. So, still not seeing it. Okay, there it is. Coming up. Thank you. Luana, you did it. Thank you, Luana. That's great. It's christopher.n.palmer@gmail.com. All right, let me go on. So, yes, thank you, Chuck. Okay, so also before I go to the third bucket, take advantage of my website. Everything is free there. I've got lots of handouts, about 20, 30 handouts on funeral planning and all sorts of things. Help yourself. They're free. My website, and perhaps, Chuck, could you put my website plus in the chat room as well? It is www.chrispalmeronline.com. chrispalmeronline.com. So help yourselves to all the free things on there. Okay, let me go on here to the third bucket, which is what happens after death. What happens after death? Okay, I don't see that in the chat room yet. chrispalmeronline.com. Okay, I expect you're writing it in now. Thank you very much. All righty. So we're going to talk here about body disposition. That's an infelicitous phrase, but it just means how you dispose of the body. And there are the usual ways are flame cremation or fire cremation, and burying in a heavy casket 6 feet down in a cement burial vault are very consumptive of resources and very polluting. Getting cremated, you incinerate the body at 1,700 degrees Fahrenheit, it's equivalent to driving over 500 miles in a car. It's a very globally polluting. So there are three new ways of disposing of bodies. One is what's called green burial. My wife, Gail, and I are going to be buried in a green burial ground. It's called Reflection Park, 40 acres of wild land just outside, about 20 minutes from our home. And we'll be buried down in a shroud 3 feet down, or a very simple casket. Very simple biodegradable casket, and about 3.5 feet down where the microbial activity is most intense, and that's where we'll be buried. This is how we used to bury people before the Civil War. This is how we buried and got rid of disposed of bodies for eons. And it was only when the Civil War came along and soldiers were killed and on the battlefield, and their families wanted to have them home, that embalming came along, and that led to the funeral industry, which was so brilliantly dissected and satirized in Jennifer Mitford's famous book, The American Way of Dying, which I highly recommend to all. A very witty, funny book. Jim, thank you so much for putting that out. Everyone, you can see that at chrispalmeronline.com. Thank you, Jim. Lots of free handouts there. Help yourself. Okay, so I want to talk about, as I say, these three new ways of disposing of bodies in a green and environmentally responsible way. One is through green burial. So you can just go on the internet for your area and say, are there any green burial sites near where I live? Near your town, and see what it says, and go to the websites and look them up and talk to them. Okay, there are two other ways though of disposing of your body. One is called alkaline hydrolysis. This is how Archbishop Desmond Tutu disposed of his body. He was a big climate change advocate, or against climate change advocate. And so this is how he disposes of it. You put your body, the body is put in a stainless steel casket. It's surrounded by water with 5% lye, L-Y-E, 5% lye, and over 14 to 16 hours, it decomposes. And it's very gentle. It's not very. It might be heated a little bit, but it's very, very gentle. You end up. You use a cremulator. If there are bones left there, you use a cremulator, as you do with fire cremation. Not many people know this. I mean, fire cremation, the crematoriums use a cremulator to crush the bones and procure the ashes that you receive. And same with water cremation. It's a very, very gentle and lovely thing to do, and legal now in about 40 states. And then the third and last green way of disposing of your body, which I highly recommend, is called human composting, or natural organic reduction. This is where you put the body again in a stainless steel tube. You surround it with alfalfa and straw and wood chips, and over 4 to 6 weeks, It decomposes and converts into rich nutrient soil. So you're converting the body into soil, and it's a lot of soil. You get out of it about a cubic yard, 600 pounds of soil, which you put in a cemetery or under a tree or under roses. Do anything you like with it, or give it to a conservation group to use. So that's a very good thing to do. It was pioneered by Katrina Spade in Washington on the West Coast, and facilities are being now built everywhere. Just became I lobbied for it, and Wes Moore, the governor of Maryland, where I live, just made it legal here. It's a very good thing. So look that up in your area. See if there are any facilities near where you live. Okay, so this is the third bucket. It's 2:35, so we're getting, and I want to leave as much time as possible for questions. And some of you may have questions wanting me to clarify things I've said. You may want to know what a dementia rider is, where to find one. You may want to know, even some of you may want to know what an advanced directive is. It's shocking to me that only 40% of people in this country have completed an advanced directive, and very few people have also talked to their loved ones. This is a very important thing to do. Talk to your loved ones talk to our loved ones about what we want at the end of, so they know. Nothing worse for a family member to have a loved one die and not know what they want. Did they want to be intubated? Do they want to give their organs away? How do they want to be buried? Do they want a green burial? Do they want to be a cremate? Oh God, what did he want? What did Dad want? I have no idea. This is not a good. When people should be grieving, then they've got to negotiate with a funeral home and things like that. So it's not good. So the more planning and preparation you do beforehand, the better. So I want to just read. Thought you'd enjoy this. This is in my book on page 212. I wrote this in my book in this book. I wrote, "Death is a transformative teacher, but few want to become willing students." I hope this book encourages you to become a student of your own end of life and to determine what you can do to achieve a good death. I hope you have a spirited and robust old age, I wrote here. Live as long as possible. Agree only to treatments that align with your values and your goals, and have total patient agency. When the time comes, I hope you have a rapid and brief deterioration and a painless death at home, surrounded by your loved ones. I hope you will be serene at the moment of your death and have no fear or anxiety. As I said, this book is not about selling this book. In fact, as Chuck said, all the proceeds from my books, including this one, go to fund scholarships at American University, where I was a professor for 14 years. But also, I'm happy to send you a PDF. It's actually, I've given it in the handouts. In the handouts, you'll find a PDF of my book. But if you can't find it, or you want to get it directly from me, just write to me at my email address and say, all you need to say is 2 words, send PDF. And I'll send it to you, and totally free. I mean, it's totally free. So do get hold of the book, as you'll find it very, very helpful. And if you do decide to buy a hard copy through Amazon or something, then your money will go to fund scholarships. Okay, so I want to end before I take questions. It's at 2:38, so it's great. We've done very well on timing here. I want to end. I was, as Chuck told you, a wildlife filmmaker for about 35 years, and I became very fond of attached to wolves, and made 4 films about wolves, including an IMAX film. And so I love the Wolf Credo by Del Goetz, Goetz, and it goes like this. Again, you find this in the book, page 262. Respect the elders. Teach the young. Cooperate with the pack. Play when you can. Hunt when you must. Rest in between. Share your affections. Voice your feelings. Leave your mark. I think all of you working in NACRA, especially, especially Chuck Webb and all Jim and Luana, and all of you, uh, Richmond, all of you working in NACRA are going to leave your mark. You got a great organization there. I'm delighted to be here today, delighted to be talking to you. And now I want to take questions, and you can ask me anything. Oh, yes. So, Margaret, you can write things in the chat or you can go to the bottom, as Luana said, you can go to React. You see, just put your cursor over the React at the bottom. Just move the cursor to the bottom. You'll see React, and you can click on that and just go up and see. I'll do it now. Raise hand. You see how I've raised my hand? Okay, then I'm going to lower my hand. But you can do that to get my attention, to ask a question, or you can put it in the chat. When I got the chat open, and Margaret Griffin, Margaret, thank you so much. I love it when people make comments, and this is a great one that Margaret Griffin has made. She says, you can also donate your body to university medical schools. Margaret, thank you. I've got a whole section on that in my book. It's an excellent point. It's a wonderful thing to do. It's very economic. It's far cheaper, than disposing of your body in other ways. It's free basically, and it's a wonderful thing to do because it helps doctors and medical students with their research and learning, and you get the body back. After about a year, the body is cremated and the ashes given back to the family. You can have a memorial service then or whenever you like. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing to do. I highly recommend it. I have a daughter, Christina, who's a doctor, and she benefited from having a cadaver, excuse me, cadaver. When she was at medical school. So it's a wonderful. So Margaret, thank you so much. That's a wonderful comment to make. Highly recommend it. Yeah. By the way, Chuck's got a question, but before I come to Chuck, let me just also add to Margaret's question. I was going to say that oh gosh, it went out of my head. Okay, it'll come back. Sorry, I had some point to make on that. I was going to say that people don't know this, but a typical burial in this country is on average, $13,000 to $14,000. It's expensive. And a terrible expense, and it can be much more than that, of course. Trump, when he buried one of his wives, spent $120,000 just on the casket. But so you can be, and you'll notice when you get to funeral homes, they make it very obvious which are the expensive caskets, and they could hide away and put it in the corners. You can't really see it. The less expensive. Jim, are you trying to ask me something? I can't hear you. You're muted.
Sally Phillips has a question.
Oh, okay. No, don't worry. I'll keep an eye on them. So thank you, Luana. Thank you, Jim. So Sally has a question, and she's in a group. So, but okay, Sally, hold your question for 1 second because Chuck has his hand up first. So let me go first to Chuck. And then Sally, I'll come to you, but I'm not quite sure. Luana, how do I find Sally's question? Will she come online? Will she come on and say it? Or anyway, you'll let me know. But Chuck, let me go to you first. Chuck, your question.
When my father was dying, we sat and watched golf on the television, and it was really hard to initiate a conversation about his life and our relationship, and I really struggled with that. But in your book, you talk about bringing the topic up early, and I'd like to hear you expound.
Yeah, Chuck, thank you so much for making that point. I had a hell of a time talking to my mother. Then I read somewhere this wonderful idea, which was to write down all the things I wanted to thank her for, and to write down all the things that I loved about her. And then, because if I'd done that, I would have spent some time thinking about things, come with a list, and gone to see her with this list. And then instead of me struggling pathetically to think of what to say to to my mother, I could simply have this list and say, here, I call her mummy, mummy. One of the things I love about you is the way you always, when you gave us fish for dinner, you always cleaned off the skin and deboned it, and it was just so thoughtful of you. And that would have, and I would, would have gone through a whole list of things, and some of them we would have cried together over, and it would have been a wonderful thing. So I'm very sympathetic to you watching golf because I basically do the same thing, put the TV on and say, "Hey, look, mommy, there's watch it. Wimbledon's on. Do you like to watch it?" But really better to have a list of things to talk about. But I'm so sympathetic, and I didn't do any better than you. I didn't do any better than you. But talking to people when they're dying is hard because they lose typically, not always, but lose cognitive capacity. And so the good thing is to do it early. And it's amazing how few of us have those serious conversations with those we love. This is one reason I did those letters to my friends and my wife and to my daughters because I wanted them to know. And I know that I could die suddenly and I'd get run over by a bus, or I could die saying from I have heart disease. I could die from heart attack. My brother John, my twin brother John, all my brothers died early and suddenly from heart disease. And so in order to get around that, I wrote these letters. So I put in writing. So they'll always have in writing how much I love them and what they meant to me. But talking early and so really practicing having those conversations, those heart-to-heart conversations is incredibly important. And so many of us, after our loved ones die, say, I wish I told my dad. See, I never told my dad I loved him. I never told my dad I loved him. We didn't say that in our family. We didn't use those words in my family. And I was mortified. When he died, I'd never said that to him. And it really hurt me. And and I regretted it. And
Okay.
in fact, the first
Chris?
time.
Yeah, I think Sally, I see
Yeah, I
Sally.
know. Hang on, though. Hang on, Jim. Let me finish my thought. And yeah, I'm going to come to Naomi and to Sally. But I just want to quickly say that now I've forgotten the point. Okay, sorry. God, what I was going to say. Okay, all right. So let me go first to Sally. Luana, are you going to tell me the question from Sally, or is Sally going to ask me?
Jim will have to unmute Sally.
Okay, let's do that quickly because it's 2:47.
Sally has to unmute herself.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I see
Unmute the
Maura too. This is
computer,
great. So we've got
Sally.
so Sally, go ahead. We've got Sally. You need to unmute yourself. Then we've got Sally. Then we'll have Naomi. Then we'll have Maura, Connie. This is great.
Come on.
Okay, Sally, you need to unmute yourself.
Bottom left of the screen,
Okay, so
generally.
Sally, while you're struggling with that, let me go to Naomi. Naomi, please go ahead and we'll come back to Sally. Oh no, Sally, you're on. You're unmuted. Go ahead, Sally. Sally, go ahead.
The question was, how do you start this conversation with your kids?
Yes.
Many of us have children who just do not want to have.
Oh, I know. I know. Sally, thank you so much for that question because the kids don't want to talk about it really because they don't want to. They think if they talk about it, they're worried that mum and dad will think that they want them to die, want their money, or they worried about them dying. And parents don't want to do it because they don't want their kids to worry about them dying. So no one talks about it. So Sally's question, a very good one, is what do you do? So Sally, what you do is you say to your children, "Hey, Jimmy, I know you don't like talking about this, but you go to storytelling. So you say, Jimmy, I know you don't like talking about this, but do you remember how Uncle Uncle Jack died? He was in an ICU. Do you remember that? It was pretty awful, wasn't it? And I just want you to know, I don't want to die that way. Okay, don't put me in an ICU with these tubes where I intubated where I can't talk. Please don't do that. Okay, I want to die at home. So I think, Sally, you need to be bold or have some audacity and audaciousness. You need basically to say to your children, I know you don't want to talk about this, but I want to talk to you about I want to talk about this. It's important to me, and keep bringing it up. And it's not easy, and you do need to have courage to do it. But children and parents need to talk about this. By the way, we didn't talk about it, but in one part, key part of an advanced directive is specifying who your healthcare agent is. A healthcare agent is the person who talks for you when you can no longer talk for yourself, which might be very likely be your children. And your children need to know what you want. If you haven't talked about it, they're not going to know. They're going when the doctor says we need to intubate your mum, you're not going to know to say no. Do not do that. Do not do that, because an healthcare agent needs to have backbone, needs to have some spine. You need to pick a healthcare agent who won't be pushed around by arrogant, pushy doctors. Not all doctors are as kind and considerate as Chuck. Some of them, not many, but a few can be quite arrogant and think they know better than the patient. It doesn't matter what's in their advanced directive; they know what the patient. They know. I know what's best for the patient. The healthcare agent, which can be a child, needs to speak up in a strong way. Do not intubate my mother. She specifically told me not to do that, because once you're intubated, you can't talk. So Sally, good luck with getting your children to talk, but very, very important. So thank you, Sally. Let me now go to Naomi, then I'll go to Maura. So Naomi, Jim, will you give me Naomi's question?
Here I am.
Hi Naomi. Hi Naomi.
Hi.
Nice to see you. Thank you for asking a question. Please go ahead.
So my question is that I, along with Chuck, lead the Covenant Woods CCRA for in Virginia. And I just wanted to ask whether this is being recorded. Will that be available? Because I send a monthly email to my 85 members, and I want to make sure that I can include that if people want to choose to watch it.
It is being recorded, and you're absolutely, I encourage you to do that. I encourage all of you to pass it on, pass on the PDF of my book, pass on the handouts, pass on the recording to anybody you want.
Will you put it in the NaCCRA where your other stuff is?
Yes, that's where it's going to be, is on the YouTube live videos on our website on the homepage. There is a link to the YouTube, and it is there. It will be there, the finished recording with all the attachments.
Okay.
And it's NaCCRA.com is how you get to the website.
NaCCRA, okay.
Yes, it's NaCCRA.com. Yeah, yeah, very good, very good. Thank you, Luana. So
my final question is that when my dad was passing away, he lived to 102 here in the woods, and we hired a doula, death doula, to bridge the gap between what hospice now provides and what is actually needed to the family.
Wonderful. You did it. You did
a lovely thing, but that's only the patient and his only physical, clinical stuff, because all the mental and spiritual and all of the support for my dad going through all of this for our family came from the doula.
Yeah. So let me add to that, Naomi. Thank you so much for making this point. So death doulas, a better term is end of life doulas, to distinguish them from after death doulas, which are now called funeral guides, doulas. But anyway, so end of life doulas are wonderful. I wish more hospices use them. But you do have to, as I think you pointed out, you do have to pay for them. They are non-medical, but they can do a variety of things. They can help you write an ethical will. They can write a letter to a grandchild. They can massage your hand. They can watch television with you. They can sing with you. They can play music. The roles of end of life doulas are infinite, and they're wonderful. And I encourage all of you to think about, finding one that you like, so that when the time comes, you have someone to call that you already have some connection with. So Naomi, thank you so much, and,
We
and
we
good.
one of the death doula that I used came and spoke to a chapter meeting, and it
Wonderful.
was excellent.
Yes, wonderful. They're terrific people. They're terrific people. Let me go to okay. So let me go to Nate Mora, Connie Mora. You've been so patiently waiting, and then I'll go to Luana with about Pulse. I'll talk about Pulse. So first of all, Mora, thank you so much for waiting so patiently. Go ahead.
Um, I want to bring up something slightly different, and
Sure.
it is denial of death. We live in a culture where there's a profound denial of death, as evidenced by the way older people are treated and fear of growing old and all of that. Now, I personally have a denial of death system going on that's my favorite delusion because it keeps me comfortable. I don't have to worry. It makes me think I'm going to live forever, and quite frankly, I love that. Now, with my intellect, I can work all this out. I can say my religion teaches this, my mythology teaches this, my philosophics, like my science, I can work it all out with my intellect. But there's another process that goes on, and it's like when the delusion is pierced and the ego has to face its own extinction as a reality.
Yeah.
And that is now.
Yeah.
And that is the most agonizing psychological pain a human can experience.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Maura, thank you so much for making that profound point. I understand, I don't know what, I'm not sure I can say a lot about it, except that I hear noises. Can someone mute themselves, please? Thank you. So to, oh boy, can you hear that noise?
I'm
Can
convinced.
everybody please mute themselves because there's noise on the phone. So more, to Maura's point, uh, it's terrifying. It's terrifying. There's a whole academic discipline around terror management, terror management theory, based on just the point Maura's making. And of course, lots of us do use our religion in a positive way to protect ourselves. I mean, I just had a second, a distant niece who's 30. Um, Die of a brain cancer. She was 30. She died so happily because she was going to go to God and sit next to God up in heaven and meet all her family and so on. She died very happy. So she was lucky. But most of us are like you and me, that while we may have comfortable illusions here and there, ultimately we know we're coming to the end of life. Although, okay, I hope some of you aren't getting offended, because I know some of you, like Chuck, believe in life after death, and which is absolutely fine. But anyway, it's tough. Maura, I just want to commend you for your question. It's very good. Now it is 2:58. 2 minutes to go, and let me quickly. Some of you may slip away at 2 o'clock, and so I want to quickly say, from Luana says to me, Chris, please discuss the necessity of a post and to keep it updated. Yes, so a post stands for physician ordered life-sustaining treatment. It's a usually pink, but can be different colored forms in different states. It's a form you fill out with your doctor. It's signed by your doctor. So the hospitals pay more attention to it because it's a medical document. It's got the authority of a doctor behind it. So very important to do. You don't need it till you get sick, but if you get diagnosed with prostate cancer, pancreatic cancer, some horrible disease, that's the time to go to your doctor and say, I need to work with your post. By the way, some states call it a most medical ordered. Or other, it has different names, but if you say post, everyone will know what you're talking about. Very important to fill it out. And as Luana said, to keep it updated, it says if you want a CPR or how you want to be treated at the end of life. It buttresses or goes side by side. It goes very well with your advanced directive and your dementia rider. But we have so important. Let me talk about dementia for a second. So important. I want all of you to go to the Compassion and Choices website to look. I've looked at many dementia riders. What dementia rider tells how you're going to be treated if you get dementia. And there are many, and the best one to use is Compassion and Choices. It's called Dementia Values Tool. You go to the website, Compassion and Choices website, Compassion and Choices.
Chris, it's now 12 o'clock, but for those who want to leave, feel free to leave us. But there are more questions that Chris is going to continue to answer. So keep your questions coming if you're interested in saying, we'd love to have this continue. Go ahead, Chris.
Thank you. No, thank you, Luana. Please stay if you can. And if you can't, we will totally understand if you have to slip away to another meeting. No problem at all. But please stay. We won't talk long. Maybe 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever. How long? Okay. So post, very important, or most very important. And if you're suffering from a serious disease, you need to have it, and it's supplement. Oh, I know what I was saying about a post advanced care agent. Dementia rider. I was talking about, go to the Compassion and Choices website and just look up, go to the internet for Compassion and Choices. You'll quickly find their website. You'll easily find their dementia values tool and fill it out. It takes about 15, 20 minutes to fill it out. And then you can simply add it to your advanced directive and the job is done. Dementia rider is terribly important. There are 10 million people now suffering from dementia. More and more of us are going to suffer from dementia. It's just a terrible disease. It's going to last after 14, even 15 years, and goes through these 7 stages of dementia. Many of you know this already. But when you have mild dementia, you probably want to be, if you get a flu, you want to be recovered from. As you get moderate dementia, you want less intervention. And when you go to advanced dementia, where you don't recognize your loved ones, you don't recognize your grandchildren, you don't recognize anybody, you don't even know yourself, you might have started behaving very, very bad. You might have lived a life where you're courteous and dignified and polite and caring of other people, and then with this awful disease, you become violent and agitated and aggressive, and so you may not want to live through that. So you may want to say in your dementia rider to your advanced directive, if I have advanced dementia, Alzheimer's or one of the dementias, if I have that and it's an advanced stage where I don't know anybody, I don't recognize anybody, and I have no quality of life, my quality of life is down to 0, please, if I get pneumonia, do not give me an antibiotic, for example. They're very important. So all these things, pulse, dementia riders, all go together. Now let me go to Luana. I hope I did that okay. Now let me go to Patrice Blanchard. So nice to answer your question. And Patrice wrote, as you all see in the chat, she wrote, I purchased a green burial plot a couple of years ago. Wow. And was told they'd take care of actual burial once the body is delivered to the cemetery. That's true, but you can also, let me just intervene to say that that's true, but the good thing about green burial is you can be very much hands-on. You can carry the body. You can write on it encourages more intervention. One of the things I hate about the way we normally bury people, where my parents were buried, my brothers were buried, it's so impersonal and cold and distant. And I just, you're just an observer. You're not really involved in it, and don't like that at all. Anyway, going back to your question, Patrice, they recommended I talk to regular funeral homes to arrange delivery. This is true. I talked to 3 of them. All explained that pickup from place of death, storage/refrigeration, no embalming, good, and final delivery to a cemetery would cost me between $5,000 to $7,000. Wow. You talked to 3 of them, and they were all about the same price, $5,000 to $7,000 for those reduced services. That is a ridiculous amount of. There's got to be a funeral home. I can't believe there's not a funeral home in your area which doesn't. It's amazing. With funeral planning, it's amazing how the funeral homes can cost. There'd be such a difference in price in between funeral homes in your area. Anyway, let me go on. Yes, half the average cost of regular service, but still ridiculous. I mean, I agree, Patrice. Bottom line seems to be that in my state, Wisconsin, a licensed funeral director must be involved in body disposition. Ideas on this? Well, I'm very sad to hear all that. And you've checked carefully in your state in Wisconsin, because maybe a licensed funeral director does not have to be involved. There's something called home funerals. You may want to go to the Home Funerals Association. You can look at their website, Home Funerals Association. I think I got that name. It's very similar to that. If you just type in home funerals, you'll quickly find it. But it's worth looking at. They have a lot of advice on their website how to do it. I'm strongly in support of home funerals. You lay the body out in the house. You gently bathe it. You have a service there, for most states it's actually a little helpful to have a funeral home involved in a small way, but not to $5,000 to $7,000 worth. But have them involved in a small way. They can do the death certificate and things like this, and carry the body, deliver the body to the green funeral. The Green Cemetery and so on. But if you can't find a funeral home, if they're all obnoxiously expensive and think that they have some right over every body, every dead body, then you may want to fight that and test the limits and say, no, we're going to do this without a funeral home. We're going to do it ourselves. We're going to use ice chips to keep the body cold. We're going to buy a cheap and inexpensive biodegradable casket. We're going to put the body in it and take it to ourselves to the green. You can do that. It's not. I'm not saying it's easy, but you can do that. So, Patrice, feel free to write to me privately in my email address if you want more help on that. It's a subject I feel strongly about. So thank you, Patrice, for that question. Margaret Griffin, can you use an ambulance? This is relevant to Patrice's question. Can you use an ambulance? I think you cannot. I think an ambulance, the body has to be breathing. In other words, I can't use an ambulance, I didn't think. Pretty certain you can't use an ambulance to take a deceased body, a dead body, from the house to a green burial ground. Okay, but you check on that. Check. Call up the hospital and ask them. Patrice says, problem is where the ambulance tapes you. Apparently it can't go straight to cemetery right immediately after death because arrangements cause some delay. Can't see the clarification about getting a death certificate, coroner doc. Okay, so I'm sorry you can't get clarification on this, Patrice, but you can do your own death certificate. You need a doctor or a medical provider to legitimize the death certificate. And you can't use an ambulance, but you can use, family can help. So Patrice, same thing for you. Feel free to write to me, write to me. Okay, it is 3:07 in the East Coast here. Who else has a question? Oh, Maura says, add to the lecture the difficulty in getting adequate pain management. It's a real problem for me. Yes, this drives me crazy. Hospices seem sometimes, not all of them, but some hospices seem to want to hold back. It's because morphine, drugs lulls, makes you sleepy and soporific, and the hospices don't want to be criticized by families. What did you do to my mother? She was talking a minute ago now you've slugged her with some opiate and she can no longer talk to us. What have you done? Not realizing that the mom was in intense pain and the hospice was simply doing its job of easing the pain. But Maura, your point is very well taken. And this is why loved ones. This is why good to before you ever get to this age, good to talk with your loved ones, your parents, your children about pain. And someone may say, "Look, I'm prepared to be in some pain if I can have some clarity so I can talk." Others may say the opposite. "Look, I don't care if I'm in pain. Give me morphine, please." or any drug that will ease the pain. So this is why it's important to have talks with loved ones about end of life, so you know what people want. And so you can say to the hospice, please give my special person who's dying, please give them pain medication right away. I want them right away. They said they wanted it. They said they didn't. Or the opposite. Please don't give them too much morphine, just enough so they're not in agony, because they wanted to be able to talk up to the end. Okay, hope I'm helping there, Maura. Naomi says, thank you to everyone who helped plan this webinar. Well done. Oh, I look forward to sharing this video. Naomi, thank you. Funeral Consumer's Alliance has put in here, I don't know who, I think probably Richmond put this in. And Funeral Consumer says, I used to serve on the board, excellent organization. They give you lots of good advice. There's also almost certainly a chapter of FCA in your state, which will have done price surveys of funeral homes in your state. So good to look into that, because I can give you advice of which funeral homes offer, what their basic package is. It's amazing. Just where I live, Pumphrey Funeral Home of the Road, their basic fee is $3,000. You go down the road to a few miles away, down to Gowfrey Funeral Home. Their basic package starts at $10,000. It's outrageous. By the way, very funny chapter in Jessica Mitford's book about the American Way of Death, about that funeral home, how they ripped off the Kennedy brothers, Jack and Bobby, when they were murdered, when they were assassinated back in 63 and 67, respectively. Very, very interesting. Very interesting book. And so be very careful. You need to be very selective, and don't go to a funeral home which has been bought up by MCI. Avoid them. MCI is a huge, wealthy, plush, multi, a huge company, multi global company, which buys up these small funeral homes, keeps everything the same. So gullible buyers think, oh, it's the same funeral home where my mum, where Auntie Alice got buried. Oh, they did such a good job, not realizing that behind the funeral home is MCI with his greedy claws, trying to extract every minute. That's why Gamfrey, whatever I've forgotten, has $10,000, because MCI has made him do it. So watch out for MCI. Watch out for MCI. I believe in Maryland, Jim Fantasy said, Jim's in Baltimore, near where I live. Jim says, I believe in Maryland, the anatomy board will pick up the body correct and take it from there correct. Also, Maryland has pulse. It's called a most. Absolutely, Jim. Well done. It's a bright pink cover. Well done. Patrice Branchard talks about Ellen Goodman. Ellen Goodman's fantastic. She was a Boston Globe, as you know, columnist. She created The Conversation about, I think, 20 years ago. It was a wonderful project. Offers excellent questions that help clarify specifics about what a person wants at the end. But yeah, I highly recommend Ellen Goodman's The Conversation. It's very, very good. Patrice, thank you for mentioning it. It's excellent. Here's NaCCRA. This is probably Richmond again. No cost cremations. That's interesting. No cost cremations. Gives the website sciencecare.com. Okay, I didn't know about that. That's great. Well, Richmond, thanks for sharing that. Interesting. Please, all of you, click on that and see what that's about. It looks very interesting. No cost. I don't know quite what that means, because cremation does cost money. You need to build a crematorium. But anyway, look into that. Who else? It's 3:12. We're ending up here. But anybody else? Have I missed any questions? Anybody want to click on the reacts and click on their raised hand? Yes, Lee Smith has a question. Hi, Lee.
Hi there. I'm the chairman of the Health and Wellness Committee at a retirement home.
Wonderful.
It's the Benson Hall Retirement Community in McLean, Virginia.
Wonderful.
And I had decided to have an initiative about end of life. And then I got the NaCCRA announcement about your talk.
Yeah.
And so tuned in.
Yeah.
And I ordered your book, but Amazon has not delivered it. So
thank you.
I am in the process of trying to decide, how do you convey these thoughts to the residents. And I wondering if there is an accompanying slide set or teaching kit or something to accompany your book so that we can easier, rather than going through PowerPoint and making slides and things, whether we have such a thing already available that we could purchase or whatever.
Yeah. So Lee, first of all, good for you for serving as chair of the Health and Wellness Committee at your place. That's wonderful. If you ever need a speaker, I'm happy to give a talk there. All my talks are pro bono. But here's what I would recommend. I don't have a slideshow because I totally am opposed to PowerPoint slides in presentations, and so I don't do that. But here's what I would do, Lee. Here's what I would do. I would send a note through your internal communication system. You know, your whatever you call it in your home, not your home, in your senior living place. I would send a note saying to everybody, "Hi everybody, I'm Lee Smith. I'm head of the Wellness and Health Committee, and I'm very interested. You can even mention this talk. I've come from a talk from Chris Palmer, and I wonder how many other of you would be interested in getting together and talk about it. Please let me know. And I'm very interested in learning more about it. I want to die well. So I would write a very heartfelt short note and get people together. Say we're going to meet at 7 o'clock after dinner on Wednesday night, March the 3rd. Please come and bring your questions and just see and bring a pad of paper and take notes. I mean, this is you take notes, and then you can bring in speakers like me or other people, and it's a wonderful thing to do. You know, it's funny. It's a taboo subject, as I think it was Patrice, taboo subject. And the people don't want to talk about it. But on the other hand, I notice that when people do get into conversations about it, they're fascinated. They're fascinated. They want to learn more. They want to know what happens when you die. What do you feel? What happens? Is there life after death? What do people need about these near-death experiences? What can I do now to help me ease my pain later? They're full of good questions. So I encourage you to do that and feel free to invite someone like me to come and join you. And if you want help drafting the letter, I'm happy to help you draft that letter. You've got my email address. Write me a note, and I'll help you draft the note to your friends, all your people there at your place. Great thing to do. And you could become a leader there on that subject and start. You can either make it part of the health and wellness group, or have a side discussion amongst people who are interested in death and dying. Is that helpful, Lee?
Thank you. Yes. We have
good for you.
Lecture series once a month, and I was just thinking we'd sort of somehow work it into the schedule.
Yeah. Good luck with you. Let me know how I can support you.
A series, as a matter of fact.
Yeah. Great. That's
Lee,
very exciting.
On the website, when the recording is posted, there'll also be about 9 attachments that Chris has provided. So you may take a look at that also and see what information you might also glean from the attachments that we will be posting and are currently posted of his speech currently. And so that may be helpful.
Yes, thank you, Luana. Very, very, very. And Lee, feel free to take those handouts and pass them on. Send them on to people, and really put to work. Send on my PDF of my book. Share it with people. It's all free. It's all pro bono, and just do. I think I read you that beautiful Wolf Credo. And I ended up with the words "leave your mark." I mean, this is how to leave your mark. Is to help people achieve a better death. So good for you, Lee. Jim has a question. Hi, Jim.
Yeah. Just want to say, I think the stimulus would be, I just came for an interesting, exciting talk by Chris Palmer, and I want to follow up on it. That's the reason to start right now.
Yeah. Maura talks about death cafes. Death cafes are great. Do go to them. Do attend them. I've attended many. They're very good. Maura, thank you for mentioning that. They're terrific. You could just do a quick search on the internet for death cafes near where you live. They're a lot of fun. and I encourage you to go to them. They're very, very, very good. Patrice says, very grateful to NaCCRA and you, Chris, for all this thought-provoking information, much needed thing. Oh, Patrice, my pleasure. It's an honor to be here with all of you. I just love talking about this stuff, and so grateful to all of you who came and
Chris, NACRA is grateful for you. You have brought up a subject that has been on many of our minds. Most people, as you say, unable to start the conversation, but you've told them to do it over and over. You've given us some tools. The handouts are on the website. All of your information is in the chat. This entire recording will be on the NACCRA website, on the YouTube, and we can't thank you enough, and we can't thank all of you that attended today for your patience and listening so intently to all this information that Chris shared with us today. So thank you for coming and look forward to...
May I just say a very quick thank you to you, Luana. Thank you to NACCRA. Thank you to Chuck Webb. And thank you to Richmond Shreve and Jim Fantasy and Marguerite, all of you who run NACCRA. It's a great organization. I'm very happy to be a member now and support it. And Luana, thank you for this very lovely goodbye words you just gave.
All right.
Thanks, everybody. So nice to be with you.
Thank you. We'll see you in March. We've got another one coming, and we hope to keep them coming. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.